Hello and welcome to the Champions of Happy podcast, the podcast where I talk to my friends about what makes them happy, what makes them smile, and what brings them joy. Hi everyone, I hope you're keeping happy, safe and well. I'm so excited for this X-Men related podcast. See what I did there? I'm joined by Chris and Chandler from the podcast X Reads the Podcast. I'm so thankful they joined me and I got so excited about this episode. I don't think I did a very good job of actually introducing them, but they are Chris and Chandler from X Reads the Podcast. They read XMen Comics, they look back at them, they talk about the art, the fashion, the wording, the story, the script, everything about it. They're so lovely, they're so kind, they were so nice, and I'm just over the moon they would be a guest on my podcast. Thank you again, Chris and Chandler, for being on the podcast. I really appreciated it, and it allowed me to have a bit of a geeky rant and a vent about things that I've been wanting to get off my chest for a while. So without further ado, here's the episode. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Chris and Chandler. Thank you very much for joining me on the Champions of Happy podcast. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us. We're so glad to be here.
Yeah, pleasure.
No, thank you so much. I've been listening to your podcast now for quite a while now. I can't remember how I first came across it, because obviously you guys have your own podcast called X Reads the Podcast, where you go back and read old comic book issues of X-Men and read through it and discuss it and talk about it. And I think one day I was just on the podcast app and I was just trying to find new podcasts to listen to, and I was like, oh, I'll just put in some keywords that I like, and I put in X-Men, and then you guys came up, and I'm like, oh, and then I found you on Instagram and found out more about you. And I as a massive X-Men fan myself, I was like, I love this. This is great. And I've been trying to read the issue while you guys read it as well, just so I can try and read along. So about it. So why X-Men? Of all the Marvel franchises out there, why X-Men?
That's a good question. I mean, first of all, so happy to hear that you discovered us just through the podcast app. That's exciting. Before we even answer that question, I want to ask you before I forget, do you own the issues yourself, or are you reading on a tablet, through a subscription?
I find them I think I had the Dazzler one, just because I love Dazzler, so I have that one. And others I've just found various online downloads.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. I just was curious. Anyways, X-Men. Chris, why do you think we chose X-Men?
Well, X-Men are probably one of the most influential fictional universes that had such a major impact on both of our lives. You know, starting from X-Men, the animated series in the 90s. You know, that was the one thing that I would be so excited about waking up every Saturday morning with my bowl of cereal, looking forward to. And, the storylines were very adult, and it just made me feel like I wasn't watching a kid's show, So that's why it made such a lasting impression on me, through the years.
Yeah, I guess same. Definitely animated series got me into it. And I was reading some Fantastic Four and some Spider-Man stuff, but really it was X-Men that I was drawn to the most and most interested in. And I loved the movies when they came out starting in 2000. And X-Men are just my favorite when it comes to the Marvel Universe.
And of course, we collected the action figures back then. And the action figures live on today. They're Disney. There's a lot behind.
In your background, I can see a ton. Whose are they?
Those are mine. Those are actually no X-Men. Those are all my Avengers one and Fantastic Four. So they're all up here.
His downstairs is wall to wall covered in X-Men action figures now, and they're all set up in their different scenic tableaus.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I should have introduced you first. Really, that completely skipped that part. So obviously you are Chris and Chandler, co-hosts of the podcast X Reads the Podcast. How do you know each other?
We know each other because we both live in Los Angeles. We met working in the entertainment industry, and I was a part of a casting office called Pembroke Frank Casting. They're still around.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that was the original.
This is the original way we met.
Because the universe puts people into your life on purpose sometimes, and I feel like Chandler was definitely on purpose for me, because we met each other several times before we actually knew each other.
Right, over the phone.
Over the phone, just working in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Chris worked in a situation where he was looking for casting directors for workshops, and I was working for casting directors. So he would call and say, is Dean or Don available? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so yeah, we met that way. And then coincidentally, we both went to Las Vegas with different friends that were friends together. And then we were like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I know you. I know your name. And the thing is our friends, blessed, but, we were in our like early mid-20s and, there was a lot of drama going on in Vegas. So our friends group, each had their little blow up fights and I'm going back to the hotel and, like, I don't want to be near you. So me and Chandler are just sitting there like, oh man, all of our friends just kind of left us, but we're still in the club and the night is young. So let's hang out.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having a whole entire Las Vegas adventure through the night that ended with a dance battle.
Yes.
At Crave.
Yes.
Yes.
There were 2 dance crews.
Yes. We ended up making friends with one of the dance crews. And when they took us to this other nightclub, they said, oh man, those other people are in there, that other crew, and me and Chandler were thinking, oh my God, they're going to have a gang fight. They're sounding like they're going to brawl. This could be like, West Side Story or something. So we get into the club and we're just kind of like bracing ourselves like, okay, we're in for an adventure. We hope this doesn't break out into a knife fight. But then Britney Spears' Toxic comes on. Oh, yes.
Yes.
And of course, like they started breaking out into dance moves.
So it was West Side Story.
It was West Side Story, but in a different way, like in the legit way. Like they were 2 dance crews and we got to witness that. It was so exhilarating. And, that whole experience cemented our friendship.
Night 1.
Yeah, we knew that like, okay, from now on, anytime we hang out, it's going to be an adventure.
That wasn't the answer I was expecting. I was expecting you to both say you both met across the room of a comic book store, but that's far more interesting and involves Britney Spears, which I appreciate. So how did you discover that you both like X-Men then and Marvel?
I think we just discovered that we both were just nerds in general. Buffy was a big connective tool, Sailor Moon and X-Men, but I think the X-Men stuff didn't really solidify until we started getting into this podcast. I think we both knew we were fans of it, but then the podcast really kind of revealed the many layers of
fandom that we both have within our souls.
Yes.
It just unleashed. And now it's just like all X-Men all the time.
Amazing. So whose idea was it when did you sit down and say, hey, let's start a podcast? Like,
sure.
How did
that was me. Sure. This is Chandler, by the way. So yeah.
And before you get into that, usually I'm the one that has the crazy ideas. So this was Chandler's.
Yeah, this was my idea because I was listening to podcasts and I was listening to a true crime podcast called A Date with Dateline and have since confessed to them that I've stole their idea or stole their concept, which was basically 2 friends getting together and talking about an episode of Dateline. And that's all they do. And they recap it. And I was like listening to it and I would like laugh and I'd be like, oh my God, I love their friendship and their relationship. I was like, oh my God, I've got a friend like that. I can talk about like X-Men things. And like, we didn't really have much of like a comic book, catalog, so to speak. So I started buying them off eBay and I'm like, let's just get these vintage issues and do it.
And we did.
It's a great podcast. I truly love it. I love listening to it. Even when I'm not reading along, it's just like I feel like I'm there with you guys. You have such a familiar tone to you both, and it's just fun as well. And I love how you've had comic book writers on it, and you've had recently you had the Emma Stone voice artist whose name I'm completely blanking on now, which is terrible.
Yeah. Kari Walgren, who played Emma Frost. You said Emma Stone, which I love Emma Stone.
Oh, God, what am I... Emma Stone, no, actually, A. What am I talking about? Oh, my God, shame on me.
6 Degrees of Separation, Kari Walgren actually voiced Emma Watson. I'm sorry, oh my gosh, all the names are confused. That's a totally different thing. Hold on. Okay, so Emma Stone was in Spider-Man as...
Gwen Stacy.
And Kari Walgren voiced Mary Jane which is also the Spider-Man. I love doing this 6 degree of separation thing. This whole world is connected.
Yeah, right.
But Kari Walgreen, oh my God, she was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She read the lines from the comic book, and I died. Yeah. I died. It was so exhilarating.
It was,
darling.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like I was watching an episode of Wolverine and the X-Men all over again. It was great, and I'm so glad you asked about Emma Frost. Oh my God, I want to say Stone again. No, I'm so glad you asked about Emma's accent as well, because I'm like, what is the deal with that? Is she British? Is she mid-Atlantic? It's like, so I'm glad you guys touched on that. But one of the things I was like super like excited about was when you interviewed the cast of the original 90s cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that a charitable event, that one?
It was not necessarily. It was just like a remembrance. So essentially, the voice actor of Cyclops, Norm Spencer, passed away in August last summer, and we had met Lenore Zan, who voiced Rogue, a year prior, and she essentially was like, "Listen, I want to get the cast together. I want to do this kind of in remembrance of Norm Spencer. Would you moderate it?" And she asked me, Chandler, to do that, and it was just so flattering. I was so like, "Oh my God, you could ask anybody on the planet. Like, why are you asking me?" But yes, I'm going to do it.
And I watched it like it was very touching. It was very emotional and like a very fun. Mm-hmm. They had such good stories, for that panel. Like I'm so glad that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I loved hearing the voice actress of Storm talking about all the grand things she would say and command the weather. It was such a great, what a delight. I can't imagine you would ever think as a kid you'd ever be interviewing them. Watching the cartoons.
God,
no way.
No. It's like, yeah.
And that was actually what I forgot her name. The Storm actress.
Oh, Allison Seeley Smith.
Yes, Allison. That was her first panel.
Yeah.
That was the first time that she's ever, delved into the fandom universe with the rest of the cast. And the cool thing is, they are so loved, and they didn't even know it until the past couple of years when they started doing conventions.
Oh my God.
People adore them just like we adore them.
They're so ingrained in my brain. Like I instantly know when I read the comics now, it's hard not to hear their voice when I do it. I was so excited to watch that and incredibly jealous. But yeah, thank you for doing that. That was served my fandom very well. I want to ask, so X-Men for me, I always like them because they always felt, with Avengers, it always felt like a club, a boys' club. Whereas X-Men, they always felt for me the family you didn't necessarily you were born with, but necessarily that you found, which mirrors very much some aspects of the gay community where you find your own family. So that's why I've always attached more onto the X-Men than the Avengers. Controversially, though, I'm not a massive fan of the X-Men films, whereas the Avengers, I mean, to be fair to the X-Men films, they were one of the first, along with Spider-Man, superhero films to come out, and I guess there wasn't a real, end-long game plan, whereas the Avengers have had the entire MCU universe. How do you feel about the X-Men movies?
I like a handful of them. I don't love them. I like the first one and the second one because I nostalgically remember how excited I was. I don't think that they're fantastic films. I think X2 is my favorite. But yeah, I don't really like, especially the new ones. Oh my God.
Well, I kind of feel like, they're different universes. So to me, the X-Men movies are not canon.
No,
but they're fun additions.
Yeah, but the third was so bad. The Last Stand, bad.
Oh yeah,
or Apocalypse, bad. I love the X-Men. I was like, I can't wait for this movie to be over.
Controversially, I didn't hate Last Stand. I actually quite enjoyed it because I felt like you actually saw them actually use their powers for a change in that film. I mean, I love the Phoenix Saga, and that's one of my favorite comic books as a kid. So to see it being thrown up in the air and just destroyed did kill me. But I also didn't hate the I don't know what they called it, but the Phoenix, the latest Phoenix film,
the Dark Phoenix.
Dark Phoenix. Yes, I thought it was an okay superhero film, but I also it wasn't what it should be as it is in the comics and the 90s. I think the 90s cartoon did the Phoenix Saga the best justice. out there.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
You know, about that movie, The Dark Phoenix, my favorite part about it was Dazzler made an appearance, and it was
Teeny,
so
tiny.
amazing. It was tiny, but that just touched my heart. I was so glad to see her incorporate it.
Were you expecting Gaga or Taylor Swift to be Dazzler?
No, because you know those would have been bold casting choices. Secretly, Dazzler in my heart is Kylie Minogue.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And maybe they can do one where they go to the future because she's a little bit older now, and then Kylie Minogue can be Dazzler. Like,
sure,
it could happen.
Why not?
But Lady Gaga would actually be a pretty awesome Dazzler too. Who else do you think, Chandler?
Oh, I don't know. I don't like fan casting at all because I feel like you're just disappointed no matter what. I mean, I can't think of who would be a good Dazzler, honestly. Or was I thinking of somebody the other day? Sorry, move on from me. I'll come back to that.
With Gaga, I've always thought she'd be a great. I'm going to get the character's name wrong now, but Celine, one of the Hellfire Club members.
Oh, yeah.
After watching American Horror Story, I think she would be a pretty good villainess in the Marvel universe if she was ever to do a Marvel film.
I love Lady Gaga so much. She is so talented. She can do anything in my eyes.
I mean, 2020 was a pretty crap year, but for music, we got a lot of decent new stuff. I
like Chromatica.
Gaga, oh my God. What, I mean, dancing in my kitchen compared to dancing in a club, very different, but still.
So, like, we love Dazzler so much that when Kylie Minogue, during this past year, during the pandemic, she did a live concert that you had to pay to watch. So I said, Chandler, I don't care. I'm going to come over and we're going to put on Dazzler cosplay and we're going to rock out to this as if it's a Dazzler concert. And we did. It was amazing. The windows were wide open so everybody in Hollywood could see us dancing in the window to Kylie Minogue.
It was fun.
Dressed as Dazzler, and we had mimosas.
Yes. Chris was Outback Dazzler, and I was Disco Dazzler.
Nice. Brilliant. Do you prefer Dazzler with long hair or short hair?
Personally, it's short hair.
I like it changing. The issue that we just covered, it was very symmetrical. Like, it was shorter and very, chopped very finely. I liked that.
Yeah, I like that look, too.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed her comic Extreme X-Men, where we got different dimensions and we got a gay Wolverine, which was quite nice. But Dazzler is I don't know why gays are drawn to Dazzler so much. I don't know,
isn't it obvious?
Shiny and pretty.
If everybody's like comparing her to Lady Gaga and Kylie Minogue, I think it's pretty obvious.
Massive walking, talking cliches.
Yeah.
So on comics then, do you guys remember X-Men aside, do you remember what your first comics were?
Oh, I think that was a long time ago, but like I want to say it was an X-Men issue, and my dad would take me to the comic book store, and he's all like, "All right, you're not going to buy any of those full price comics, but you can go into the nickel/25 bin and get whatever you want." So I would always come out with like a big stack. And X-Men would be in there, but also a bunch of titles that were on sale, like Micronauts, and which is so weird because they're making a movie out of it. Micronauts, that comic that I got on super discount as a kid. But it was so long ago, I cannot remember the exact issue it was. Do you, Chandler?
Not the exact issue. I mean, so the first X-Men issue, it was an X-Men Classics, where they retold Uncanny X-Men 175, which is when Madeline Pryor kind of manifested the Dark Phoenix image thing, and she was kind of slowly going into her Goblin Queen mode. That was one of the first X-Men comics I read. One of the first comics ever, I think, was a Fantastic Four comic, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, it was a while ago.
I remember now. This is so weird. But, I was raised in the Christian church, and my first comic book was The Picture Bible. And it was the full Bible, but in comic book format.
I had
yeah. Did you really?
I had one of those.
Mine's engraved with my name and everything.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Like my full name, Christopher. Super fancy. But like,
do you still have it, Chris?
I still have it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I still have it. It's one of those mementos I kept from childhood because, like that's what got me into the format of comic books, was reading the Bible of all things. But let me just say, they cut out a lot of the good stuff. You know, like,
kid friendly.
It was a very kid friendly Bible. Yeah, there wasn't any of the normal stuff in there.
Yeah.
I think my first comic was a New Warriors comic. I don't remember it. My dad. There was this really random comic book store in the middle of where we lived, and we never went in. And randomly one day, Dad took me, and the walls were just like, it was really dark and like hard to see anything in there, and a bit dodgy. But I just picked out randomly, and it was a New Warriors with Speedball, Nova, Justice, and Firestar. I cannot remember the storyline at all, but I can see the cover. And I love the New Warriors, but I wish someone would do something good with them. The last two reincarnations of them haven't been to my taste, but there's such potential there. But X-Men, I think it was there was a comic book called Essential X-Men, which I think was essentially what was storylines reprinted, but were like a few months behind the regular storylines at the time. But these were like stories that you could read, and that's what kind of got me into it. I think I started when Magneto had a clone, Joseph, and I think I started from there onwards, and I've not stopped since. Have you guys got particular favorite storylines and teams? And that's a massive question because there are so many. But
oh my God. Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to give a shout out to the New Warriors, created by Fabian Nicieza, who is on our podcast. Fabian also is an incredible X-Men writer, and one of my favorite storylines he wrote was Fatal Attractions, which is when Magneto rips the metal out of Wolverine's body. Mm-hmm. And then we discover that Wolverine has bone claws. I loved that. I loved also when Fabian did Legion Quest, which was leading up to Age of Apocalypse. I loved that. I loved Age of Apocalypse. Sorry, Chris, you can go.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I'm so boring because I love the Dark Phoenix saga. And it's just like everybody does. And, Chandler actually got me into the Brood saga.
Oh, I love the Brood saga.
We covered that for so long. There were so many issues of it, but like it was intense. I hated the mosquito monsters, which made me want to swat them even more. So it was even scarier when they got turned into the mosquitoes. Mm. Yeah, but also, you know what? I just rediscovered House of M.
So good.
Oh, yeah. And Chandler actually lent me the trade paperback a while ago. Bless, I still think I have your trade, and I got to return it from all those years ago. I'm one of those friends. I'm like Homer Simpson, and he's Ned Flanders, and I go over and borrow his comics and never return it. But anyway, we're actually going to be recording a little bit later today, the first issue from House of M. So I got Marvel Unlimited, which is like $10 a month, and you can read all the back issues on your tablet. And at the time, I, didn't get all of the story because you would have to buy like all these other issues like Iron Man and like, to get the full aspects, because that's what they do, all the tie-ins to get you to buy every single issue. Mm-hmm. But now I get to read the whole entire House of M. So I'm really excited to get back into it, but it was just so intense. Mm. Brian Michael Bendis is the writer of that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was very intense. And I loved seeing the alternate realities. Mm-hmm. That's why I love the Mojoverse as an example. Like one of my favorite episodes of the animated series was when they go to the Mojoverse. Because we live in Hollywood. Yeah, we live in Hollywood, and like, I kind of vibe with that whole Hollywood aspect of things filming everywhere. The school that I grew up near was where they filmed Buffy and 90210 and She's All That. As an example. So like the Mojoverse really like resonated with me, and I just love seeing alternate realities. And Anna Senti was on our show, and she actually created it, which was really cool. And I didn't know this, but she created all this before reality television. It's almost as if
before the internet. So it's like she created this world that could exist now, but didn't exist back then. It's,
really awesome.
It's pretty genius.
Yeah.
And Spiral as well is beautiful character.
Mhm.
The arms and the hair and the gladiator get up. It's love. I guess with House of M, the artwork it's just so crisp and clean, and the writing is so good, and especially with WandaVision having come out now, I guess a lot of people are starting to jump on the comics and read more about who did what and who has what. And they're not the same, but they have elements of similarity. But I guess speaking of alternative realities, I really liked. Oh my god, what's it called? Age of X.
Yeah,
Rogue is Reaper.
Yeah, Age of X.
Yes, love that artwork. I think it was Clay, someone who was the artist for that. I'm gonna have to totally look that up. But yeah, I loved seeing Pixie as a bit more as a bad guy. Well, not bad guy, but like an evil winged kind of character instead of Although I love Pixie, so I can't really say too much about that. But I guess, how do you compare comics? It's really, so much has changed with writing style and art style. But how do you compare the older comics to what we have more so today?
Well, I have a strong opinion about this because.
Oh, go ahead, Chandler.
So, first of all, I like both eras. This kind of Claremont era of X-Men and the current era, this Dawn of X, Jonathan Hickman era. The one complaint I have, though, on both sides is obviously Claremont. There's so much language. There's so many narrative boxes. There's a lot to read and take in, and a lot of the text takes up the art. And the complete opposite has happened now. Now it's tons of art with very little text. And what it does for me is that it makes the experience of reading a comic go by super fast. Like, I read a comic and I'm like, what just happened? I felt like I took 5 minutes out of my day to read this, and I don't know what I just read. Whereas a Claremont issue, you would get like a whole story, you get backstory, you get information, you get like a whole complete thing within one comic book. So that's how I feel about it.
I like the new Hickman stuff a lot because they do a lot of throwbacks and Easter eggs from the Claremont era and from the other previous eras. So, they'll have, things in the background that relate to a past issue from somewhere else. But if you're a fan, you'll know. I actually love what they're doing with it right now. It feels like it's bringing the whole universe, tying it all up together to build up to something even more epic than what they were doing. Especially with Moira. Like, that character, wow, they really did something with her, didn't they?
Oh, they did.
It's fun to read back on old issues and then see Moira there, and you're like, oh, but it's not what we all think. Really, she's done it all before.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see what they're going to do with her.
I love those issues because they show the art, styles and the costumes from the past, saying, oh, she lived this past life. And so, it makes all of the experience of the X-Men comic books valid in today's world.
Would you rather live in the X-Men mansion, or would you rather live on the island?
Oh, that's a good one. You know what? I'm going to say the island, because the mansion gets blown up all the time. Like, seriously, like every 5 years the mansion explodes. So I'm like, I don't want to live in an exploding castle, please. I would rather live on a tropical island with my Mai Tais and a hammock that's made by the island itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the easy answer is the island, because it can create whatever you want. So you can have the mansion on the island. It just creates things. But
you're so secluded, though. Like, you can't go to 7-Eleven.
No, because I like the mansion because it has a pool, it has a diving board, it has the basketball court, it has the jets. And
the island has a tiki bar.
The island has a tiki bar, but it's also, the mansion is just in northern state New York, so you could just drive down to New York City if you want to go see a Broadway show or whatever. It's just like on the island. Yeah, I guess they have the gates. You could go to the gates and go anywhere. So I guess the island is the answer, because they made it so obvious.
It's so much better.
Yeah,
and then you can make friends with the island and be like, hey, Krakoa, could you make me my house a little bigger? I kind of want a rumpus room, and you can add it onto the bedroom over there. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be great, and he'll do it. If you're cool with it.
I'm definitely a mansion boy. I will admit, I didn't necessarily like the move to the island. I felt it was, and my my opinion is changing now slowly. It depends on which issue I read as well. Like, I feel like in some issues it's all like okay, and in others it feels a bit culty weird. And I'm also not a massive fan of the resurrection structure. But I guess I think we're getting a new comic with Nightcrawler that will kind of talk about all the moral aspects of it and implications. So I'm looking forward to that because like my brain's like. So for listeners who aren't reading the current X-Men storyline, the idea is that X-Men can now be resurrected they essentially their essence and their brain and their memories are all stored with Professor X. Obviously it's not real, it's a comic book, so I shouldn't put that much thought into it. But surely if you're resurrected, it's not really you. It's essentially a backup clone. I don't know.
I agree with you. It freaks me out. It's like an episode of Black Mirror.
Also, the idea that a copy of yourself is in a machine waiting to go into a body, and there's nothing to stop it. They only just have a rule that you have to die before they could do it whenever they want. They could easily make a copy of anybody at any time. There's no reason to stop that.
I mean, in real life, can they do that from your Facebook profile? Ooh. If you've been on it since since 2012,
Ooh.
They will have the whole character arc of my evolution and how I speak and what I like.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an algorithm out there that is you.
Oh, this is so Black Mirror.
I guess I'm really loving X Factor at the moment, but the Corpse Garden is X Factor with the Corpse Garden is freaking me out a little bit. But I'm really loving X Factor. I've never really read X Factor in the past, but this team and setup I'm really enjoying, especially with North Star leading it. But I'm also confused about the rules about who can come to the island and who can't come to the island, and his husband. They won't bring Madeline back because she's a clone, but X-23 is a clone. And then there's North Star has a human husband. Why is he allowed on the island? But then also, I hate Professor X. I've always hated Professor X. He's a jerk.
He's such a snooper. Get out of my brain, Charles. I'm trying to just be private.
I'm also reading for the current Fantastic Four lineup, and I was never really a massive fan of Fantastic Four, but this current arc is really grabbed me. I really love it. And when Franklin Richards thought he was a mutant, but then discovered he wasn't a mutant, and they're not allowing him back on the island, my heart broke, and I'm like, Professor X, you're So it's a very different setup with the team in the X-Men world currently compared to the good old days of baseball in the mansion, and that I miss. That I miss a lot.
I miss that too.
But hey, I mean, one day if I ever write an X-Men comic, they'll see. But I guess you must have been asked this a million times, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. If you yourself were a mutant, what power would you like, and what would your mutant name be?
Oh man, the mutant name. Yeah. You know what? I like my handle on Instagram, which is Xtifer, and Christopher means follower of Christ. But Xtifer means follower of X. So therefore I would probably be called Xtifer.
Ooh.
As far as powers and stuff, I used to think that I wanted to be Emma Frost with all of her powers and amazing sexiness, but I've come to realize knowing everybody's thoughts and stuff is more of a curse, than a blessing. So I'm gonna go with the power to teleport so I'll never be late. Because I'm notoriously tardy.
And Chandler, yourself, surely you must have been thinking about this since you were kids. I know I have.
But we have, but for me, it changes all the time. I think Chandler's more of a constant on this.
Well, yeah, my power set, I always feel like telekinesis is the coolest power. So telekinesis is my power choice, but mutant name.
You just want to get the remote from afar.
Yes,
and be come to me, remote.
I know. So I don't want to have to go downstairs to get water. I could just be come up here, water. But mutant name, I can't think of a good mutant name. You're catching me at a weird lack of creativity right now.
Oh, usually I'm the one with the lack of creativity. The tables have turned to Chandler.
Yes, I know.
That's fine. Maybe one day when your mutant power awakens, it will just come to you and you'll know your name. I'm still waiting, but we'll get there. I'd love to be. Mine is a total ripoff of Dagger from Cloak and Dagger meets Dazzler. Basically, I want light, shiny powers, and I'd like to be called Lumen because I illuminate the room. I hadn't thought about it.
Yes.
100% have. And my boyfriend, he doesn't know it, but I've given him the name Chaos, and he can do the same thing as me, but is a bit more fighty. And yeah, we've got a comic book, Lumen and Chaos, in my brain. This is all in my head. But Marvel, come at me. I also love Cloak and Dagger. No.
Careful about just putting your ideas out there on the internet.
Oh, Chandler, you learned your lesson.
Because I've since had 2 ideas what I have put out into the ether and the internet that Marvel has done, and I'm like, wow, okay, I just need to now no, I've got good ideas, and I just need to hold on to them.
Can you say which ideas those were?
Well, sure. So I when I was a teenager, I created characters all the time. I'd always create their look and their name and everything like that. And I remember at 11 or 12, whatever, I mailed the Marvel Comics office sketches and backstory and all this information about them. And then cut to, oh my God, I'm going to forget the actual issue. I want to say it's Uncanny X-Men 350 or something like that. But Cerebro's X-Men, so basically these kind of alternate reality X-Men came out, and they used one of my characters. And I don't remember what they named her.
But it was cool.
It was cool to see her. They made her skin blue, but basically she's the exact same design, costume. She has wings. And yeah, anyways, now I'm forgetting what I originally called her too. I'm gonna have to really tighten the story up. I'm a publicist, so I should know my talking points.
The other idea.
So the other idea that I put out last year or a year and a half ago was I wanted to see Dazzler and Lila Cheney go on an intergalactic concert tour together, with the intergalactic mob chasing after them and all this kind of drama, but all centered around this idea that they are galaxy hopping with Lila's powers, and Dazzler and her are musicians. They used to be in a band together. They used to tour together, whatever. So I thought, well, let's modernize this. Let's have fun. And I even was scripting out the pages. I was like, this is a really fun idea. I'm just going to have fun with this, and we'll see. And then lo and behold, X Factor released one of their title or the covers, and on the cover is Dazzler and Lila Cheney performing in Mojo Verse
in an intergalactic concert
tour. And also the climax of my story was in Mojo World, was in one of their arenas. And so I was like, oh my God, it happened.
They
made it happen.
Oh God, I'm never going to say anything out loud ever. I mean, no one's going to take my ideas, but that's kind of cool. But that's kind of cool. It's a shame you didn't get the credit for it, but
it's just an honor.
I'm flattered.
Another question I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure it probably changes all the time, but if you obviously at the moment the X-Men are doing the vote where they can it's finished now, but we could have voted a member in, and we're still waiting to find out who's going to be in the new X-Men team. I voted for Armor. I think you guys voted for Forge.
We voted for Forge.
No.
And here's the thing. Chandler betrayed me because we came together and said, okay, we're going to vote for Forge. And this is set. We're in stone. We're endorsing it. And he turned around and did Morrow.
Mm-hmm.
He voted for Morrow.
I mean, I quite like Morrow.
It's okay, though, because why did you vote for Morrow, though?
Because, I was originally going to vote for Forge, but one of the other campaigns from the House of X podcast was pushing Morrow. And I was so convinced by their reasoning that I was like, you know what? I am going to vote Morrow, because the number one reason which I latched onto was on the X-Men team, they only have pretty human passing mutants. There's no disfigured, there's no colored, blue colored, whatever. There's no mutant on the X-Men team currently that does not pass for just an attractive human. And Marrow is not that. Marrow is disfigured. She has bones popping out of her face. She embodies what the mutant population that cannot pass for just a regular human. And I thought the team needs that.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I'm okay with that vote, because my vote for Forge and my campaigning for him was very superficial. I liked his looks. He is a hot character. He reminds me of a Tom of Finland type. He always has some awesome outfits, and I just wanted to see all those hot daddy looks.
Me too.
So Morrow is actually, I guess, would be the better choice.
I remember Maro, she was in the same time where I started reading X-Men again. She wasn't involved in the Joseph... Well, she might have been involved in the Joseph clone sort of time, but I remember when they were in space and when she was with Gambit and some alien gave her a pretty makeover, and she went from being the ugly version of herself to the more pink hair glam, and then that reverted back into what she is now. But she is hardcore, and I do like her. I like her a lot. It's a shame she hasn't been on we haven't seen much of her since. Well,
No.
M-Day, I think, maybe. It's been a while since we've seen her. So I would have liked to have known who else was on the team before we made the vote.
Well, we know Scott.
You never.
You know.
Oh, that's true. We have Scott and June, and so I'm excited to see part of the Hellfire Gala who is going to be on the team and what they're going to do. More importantly, so what new adventures we have. So if I were speaking of teams, then if you guys could form your own X-Men team of 6 members, and you can decide together or separately, who would you like on a team?
Oh my gosh, mine is so gay. It's Dazzler and Jubilee, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the fashion designer. The fashion designer.
The fashion designer.
Yes.
Oh, Jumbo Carnation.
Oh, it's one with the arms.
Jumbo Carnation. I want him to make the outfits so he can be on the team. And we need a little bit of sass, so maybe Callisto.
Okay, well that's only 4.
Do I need more?
Yeah, you need
2 more.
He said 6.
Oh, damn.
It's okay. Just pick 2 more. Throw them on.
Throw them on? Oh, this is hard. Emma, because I love Emma.
Sure, there we go.
And plus she'll want Jumbo Carnation on her team because then she can also have the fabulous outfits.
Mm-hmm.
And then one more after that.
Mm-hmm.
How about that cute brother of hers?
Christian Frost?
Yeah, let's put Christian on the team.
Okay. There you go.
But he's just an add-in. He doesn't have any reason to be there except to be cute and make sassy comments.
Right.
Oh my gosh, can this be a comic book line? It only needs to be 6 issues, but I want that to exist in the world.
That's all you need. And Chandler, Chandler, are you okay to say your team, or are you scared Marvel might pinch it?
Well, I've already said this team because, whatever. So it's the team that I originally kind of put out on Twitter was Dazzler, Lila Cheney, Strong Guy, Long Shot, Shark Girl, and then this new character named D-Cell. That's a brand new mutant that was just created in the Juggernaut series that Fabian Nicieza wrote.
Oh, I haven't finished that. I've started that series. I didn't think she was a mutant, but that's okay. Cool. Because she can
spoiler alert,
speed.
she is a mutant.
She can speed things up. Is that right?
She could decelerate things. That's why she's called Decel. So yeah.
I can tell that was a very long day. Obviously. Oh, that's cool. So, what things are you excited for X-Men and their future that you know of?
That I know of. Well, you know what? I feel as if the energy is there for Marvel to bring the X-Men back in a big way. So I feel as if they should make a cartoon and bring back past voice actors that, were loved in past series to, re-inhabit these roles. But wouldn't it also be cool for a live action series of the X-Men to happen on Disney Plus? I would think that they would have a lot of time to be able to explore the different character storylines as opposed to just throwing them all into a movie and trying to get through it, with all these characters.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've tried Dark Phoenix Saga several times now, I feel.
Yeah.
So what I agree, I would love a new animated series, whatever, and it can be very, very kid friendly and whatever. It doesn't need to be dramatic. And then for the live action stuff, I would love to see a Disney Plus series of the original 5 going to school at the mansion and do it very lighthearted, but with dramatic elements in it. Really get to know Jean and Scott and Warren and Hank and Bobby. And you've got this great core cast. And you need to know Jean very, very well before you get to Dark Phoenix. So it's like, give us a whole, whatever, 6-episode, 7-episode series. You get to introduce Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and all these kind of like extra villains. But I don't know. I want that mini series out before we go into a movie, which I think should be giant size X-Men, because then we can get the movie treatment to it.
Nice. Do you think X-Men and the mutants, do you think that they can come into the current MCU, or do you think they should be their own separate entity?
I think they can, and I think that they should. They're playing with timelines, obviously, with Captain Marvel taking place in the 90s and whatever, like, so they can kind of place these things wherever. But as far as the current timeline that we're in, I really like this idea of introducing Rogue through the Captain Marvel movies. I know people hate this idea, but I like the idea of Storm coming in through the Black Panther movies, not as Black Panther's wife. I don't want to go there, but I think she lives in Africa. They're in Africa, before she joins the team. I think
give her a cameo at least.
Yeah, I think we can have our Storm moment in general there. I don't know. I feel like there's ways to introduce characters into the MCU and then have MCU, like I said, the original 5 series that take place in the 60s or whatever timeline. I know it's weird because the time frames is all over the place, but and let people just and let the timelines kind of grow together.
Nice. Have you guys seen? I'm going to be very careful of spoilers, but I take it you guys have watched WandaVision?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Seen it all.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't finished WandaVision, what are you doing? Maybe skip ahead 30 seconds if you haven't. What did you think when we got the MCU Quicksilver rather than the Fox X-Men Quicksilver rather than the MCU Quicksilver?
Did
you see it coming?
No,
I didn't see it coming.
That was a surprise to me. And then the resolution of it in the finale was extremely disappointing to me. So I don't know. I haven't really fully processed my thoughts on specifically Quicksilver, because to me, I thought it was, with the resolution in mind, knowing the finale, I thought it was dumb that they did this. I thought I was like, well, why do this? Why tease us and make everybody go crazy
for the press, for the clicks. Because everybody was talking about it.
I know.
This must mean.
Oh, Charlie, you look so sad.
Or back. Oh, it must be Mephisto.
I hated it. I was like, no. I liked a lot about the series, but the way that they resolved that, I was like, Ralph Boner.
Yeah, I mean, they could have done better, but the whole Boner last name is a trope, because I think there was another series, I think it was Charles in Charge or something of that era, where the neighbor character went by Boner because was his last name.
The whole thing about that is that if he's Ralph Boner, why does he have super speed powers?
Yeah,
it was Agatha all along.
But after, I don't know. I guess the necklace, of course. And then
the necklace mind controlled him.
But I have to go back and see if he wears that necklace the whole time.
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, in the very beginning, because you're just like, ew, what is that necklace? It doesn't even match his outfit, And then it turns out that, of course, that was the magic charm.
Anyways, I don't understand it.
Well, Chandler, I think you're right, though. I think X-Men need a Disney Plus WandaVision style show, because I think there's so many X-Men, it's hard, you can't cram them all into one film and do them properly justice. So fingers crossed. I'd love an animated cartoon, like you say. I'd love a TV series. I'd love justice to be done to the X-Men. Justice for what should have been in the first place. But I guess budgets are bigger now, and CGI is much better than it used to be as well. So who knows? We are coming to the end of the podcast, guys. And so if you would like to plug any of your social medias, feel free.
Oh, well, you can follow us at X Reads Podcast on all social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
That's right. And you can listen to our show. It's the first and third Wednesday of every month, sometimes with bonus episodes, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you download your podcast of choice.
Nice. I also meant to say before, I loved. I was gutted I couldn't be there for when you did it live, but you did an Insta live with a few cosplayers. But it was the time difference in London was just I was in bed. But I went back and rewatched it, and that was fantastic. And so I guess you guys have really branched out and met a lot of X-Men fans, and it must be great to connect talking about this thing that we all love.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing, is interacting with the community. The X-fan community is a great community to be a part of. That cosplay party was a blast.
So much fun.
Yeah, we threw a birthday party for our podcast. That was a lot of fun to interact with people online. I love it.
Same.
What's the future for X3's the podcast? Do you have any episodes you can tell us about, or is it all a bit hush hush?
Well, House of M is what we're going to have up next, and then we're going to have a St. Patrick's Day special, which will be a lot of fun because our episodes come out first and third Wednesday, and it happens to be on St. Patrick's Day. So yeah, we're doing Uncanny X-Men 103.
Yeah, it's very Banshee and Black Tom Cassidy centric. And then we have some special guests, but are we hushing?
I think we can't talk about that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about them. I wish I could say it out loud.
I know. I never want to say until they record. Until we have the audio, I'm like, I never want to say who's going to be on the show, just in case they have to reschedule or cancel.
But let's just say, like, y'all are going to geek out.
Oh yeah,
nerd
royalty.
I love it. I love our next guest. Oh, I wish we could talk about them.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much for joining me on Champions of Happy. I'll be watching out for your Insta stories and all your new episodes. So thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. This is fun.
You've been listening to the Champions of Happy podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, it'd be super great if you could go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and a nice little review. That way the podcast can be seen by more people, and podcasts can be heard by more people, and the Champions of Happy community can continue to grow. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, where I continuously post updates about the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day. Bye!